Hey friends, welcome to a new video. Today I would like to share with you exactly how I trained and prepared for my first Ironman 70.3, starting out as a total beginner and how it turned out to be one of the greatest experiences of my life. Why am I making this video? I'm making this video because Ironman 70.3 impacted my life in so many positive ways, and it was an instrumental piece of the puzzle to lead to where I am today. It's a beautiful journey and I would recommend it to anyone. So the question is, why did I want to do an Ironman 70.3? Well, starting off, I got into triathlon because I had a pretty severe back injury. I've talked about this in other videos, but I will briefly share it here. Basically, I had a really bad injury in my back that turned out to be something that's called fibromyalgia, which means you get crazy pains in the whole of your body. And one of the ways that I fixed it was by incorporating aerobic activity throughout my days. This injury really led me to rediscover and appreciate the value of health and fitness because it forced me to stay basically on a couch for 1 year, not being able to run or to bike. So when I got the ability to do those things back again, I really cherished them, recognizing the positive impacts they had in my life. Swimming gave my back a lot of relief, even though I was not a swimmer. I could not swim 2 lengths without stopping. So I started spending a lot of time in the pool. I went from basically not being able to swim 2 lengths of the pool to progressively swimming longer distances. Gradually my back got better, my condition got better. I started running and cycling again. When I was lying on the couch for that year, I watched a whole lot of documentaries, videos, like motivational stuff, and some things that really resonated with me were the Ironman videos. The Ironman videos gave me hope. I had hope deep in my heart that I would get back to my physical fitness again, and I would do something of that sort, especially to prove something to myself. I decided to set myself a goal that scared me, but that I thought was achievable. And this is how I embarked on the journey to my first Ironman 70.3. I am an absolutely average guy with no athletic background. I am not a coach, nor do I intend to be. What I'm sharing in this video worked for me. It might not work for you, but all I can do is share my experience, hoping that it benefits you in some way. So Ironman 70.3 training is, I believe, sort of a lifestyle integrated training. It is a fairly time-consuming training schedule. Average time would be from 6-7 hours a week to 12 hours a week, sometimes more. I loved running, cycling, and I found out I actually loved swimming for all the positive impacts it had. I loved being outdoors, so it basically just became natural to combine these sports so that I could go for longer periods of time. So I started progressing and moving my first steps in the direction of a race, let's call it. I did a self-supported Olympic distance triathlon with a really old road bike, but it was so much fun. I had a blast in swimming in my local lake, then just rushing around on the bike and then running through the countryside. I knew that I wanted to do an Olympic distance sanctioned event just to get the feel for it. And I believe it is a very key important part of the process to do a test race. Choosing your target race should be something that you spend a lot of time thinking about because it is important to find a race that fits you, especially if it is the first time you're doing it. In my experience, the easier the course is, the better it is, because it is already hard work just to get to the start line. I didn't want to overcomplicate things by choosing a very hard race. So the race I chose was close to home, Ironman 70.3 Italy. It had a sea swim in the Adriatic Sea, which is fairly calm, flat bike, and a flat run. I decided to sign up for the race, and I started getting serious about my training. The fundamental principle that I followed throughout the whole of my training was heart rate, zone 2 training, also known as 80-20, which means 80% of the time is spent in a zone 2 effort, zone 2 aerobic effort, and 20% of the time is spent at higher intensities. For zone 2 training, having a way to monitor your heart rate is absolutely fundamental. I basically had an epiphany about this on a single run where I just went out and instead of blasting like usual, I kept my heart rate constant at around 150 beats per minute, and I felt like I could go forever on that run. I had to stop because my legs were hurting, but I could have gone way longer. The tools I had were a heart rate strap and a Garmin Fenix 3 HR watch. For me, these very simple tools allowed to monitor my heart rate, monitor my intensity, monitor my output so that I knew when I was overdoing it and when I was within my training zones. How do you figure out what your zone 2 is? There are a million different ways to do it. You can do a proper test. You can use like numeric formulas. You can just go by the age-old saying of maintain a conversational pace, run at an intensity which you can talk with. You can also use the Maffetone method. There's a million ways to do this, but this is just the way I chose to do it. What I basically did was 180 minus my age, and that gives you a rough estimate of the top end. And I always kept in mind that heart rate zones can vary every day because one day you might be more fatigued, so the same heart rate might not mean the same physical tax on your body. Physical bodies are not something that is just solid and it just never changes. Our bodies change every day. Another key principle of 80-20 training or zone 2 training is that you need to choose between going long or going hard. You can't have both. So long sessions are done at a very low intensity, whereas your hard sessions are short and really, really hard. I started from scratch, so I didn't have anything. The number one piece of gear that helped me was a GPS watch, Garmin Fenix 3 HR. And this I believe to be an incredible tool for insights in your training, keeping track of your complete training load, and having some metrics that you can analyze and realize at what point you are at. And for me, at least, it is also fun to look at all your metrics after you've trained, see what happened at that kilometer where you bumped. I use the Garmin Connect app a lot. It provides a lot of really good insights, both into the training and in the recovery aspect, the sleep, your overall heart rate, VO2 max, all that kind of stuff. I had a 2xU tri-suit, 2xU visor and race belt, basic sunglasses, a pair of really basic Shimano entry-level road shoes, a Cube GTC carbon road bike. For shoes I had Hoka One One Bondi 6 max cushion shoes, and that is basically it. After figuring out that heart rate was going to be the fundamental guide throughout all of my training, I needed to get about to figuring out an actual concrete plan. Instead of asking someone to prepare things for me, I took matters into my own hands and I decided to figure out a plan on my own. Basically, I just researched around the internet and friends and the team that I got into to kind of get key concepts that I could merge into a specific plan. This part was actually a lot of fun for me. Figuring out things, discovering, learning, and then merging all this information into something that could actually benefit me and take me to the finish line was something that I really enjoyed. It was a lot of fun. So, basic training plan, weekdays would be swim, bike, run, bike, swim, long run, long swim, long bike. Closer to the race, I switched this up, incorporating a lot of brick sessions. So bike to run bricks. I would do them on the weekends, but I would also do them during the week. Even just running a little distance after biking is beneficial to just get used to the transition. Total training hours were between 7 and 12 hours, 13 hours a week. Depending on, in summer they were way more because I would just ride my bike outside. One thing I will share is that I didn't really understand the concept of training blocks correctly. So if I could go back, I would watch the Ironman training video that I made and I would incorporate that concept into the 70.3 training. In a nutshell, it is a 4-week cycle where 3 weeks you build and 1 week is rest week. So each week gets a little bit more intense and a little bit more duration during the sessions. And the 4th week, you reduce all the intensity, you keep a fair bit of the volume, but you basically rest and recover and absorb the training adaptation. After that, you repeat the same cycle, building and building and building, and so on. So to start off, swimming. What did I do for swimming? First of all, I needed to learn how to swim. I could not swim properly. So my main focus was not distance, it was technique. Dial in your technique in order to swim longer, because if you have bad technique, you can swim all the meters you want, but you will never progress in speed and it will be so painful, it will be so hard just to swim even 500 meters. So it was all about technique. One huge thing that I did was take a GoPro with me and film myself swimming. Filming myself while swimming was incredibly useful because I personally could rewatch the footage and see what I was doing wrong, comparing it with, other footage from other people on the internet. but I could actually specifically ask questions to people that I knew. Ask them like, what should I do different? What should I do to make my stroke efficiency better? And another thing that was very useful was filming for like 400 meters and seeing how my stroke degraded during that period of time due to fatigue. Absolutely fundamental tools that I used and that helped me so much were pull buoy, the centerline snorkel, and a band around your ankles. Even just using these three tools at the same moment gave me an incredible feel for what proper positioning in the water should be, helping a lot with not dragging my feet and improving swimming efficiency. The swim sessions during the week would average between 1,800 meters and up to 3,000 meters, varying between some drills and technique work and main sets that were basically always one of these three. 100-meter sets, so let's say 15 by 100, or it would be 4 by 400, and then one long swim which was just continuous, like 800 meters, pause, 800 meters, and getting closer to race day, it would get closer to the race simulation distance. Cycling. Okay, so first things first, I didn't have a bike, so I had to find a bike. Scouring the internet for used road bikes, with a friend helping me, Roberto, I finally managed to get like a good deal on a road bike, carbon road bike, and I just started riding. Full disclosure, my first road bike that I started on was an aluminum road bike, really like old tech, but it was fun. It was light and fun, it had gears. Progressing to carbon was a game changer. It absolutely made me fall in love with cycling. I very quickly realized that the consistency that cycling allowed you, because it is very low risk of injury, it is low impact, but it has a lot of benefits of running, so VO2 max, and you can do intervals on the bike that will benefit your run. Carryover benefits, I made the decision to prioritize the bike as much as possible. One thing that was evident to me was that the biggest chunk of an Ironman 70.3 race is on the bike. So it made sense to spend a lot of time on the bike in order to have a great consistency in training and build the overall volume up. Another key thing that I did for the bike was improve my aerodynamics. So get as aero as I could on a road bike. For the race, I put in a Deda Espresso tri-bar, which makes all the world of difference. At any speed you are going, you will get 2, 3, 4, 5 kilometers per hour more with aero bars. So that is just a real easy free speed upgrade that I realized pretty quickly was easy way to get a better performance. Okay, so I just sat down to edit the video and I realized I'd left out some major key things for the bike, and that will be kind of like a rough weekly schedule with some key points that I will always try and follow. And those are: 1 weekly time trial, anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes. Super hard effort, the hardest you can go to gauge your weekly fitness, let's say. And I would do it up a local climb here. I would just go as hard as I could until I couldn't go anymore. Then the rest of the rides would be zone 2 rides. Anywhere from 1 hour to 2 hours and a half. Flat when I was extremely exhausted, or with some climbs when I was feeling kind of good. And those would be like zone 2, just go out, ride, not like super easy, but fairly easy. Then I would do one, we can call it tempo ride, where I would go like on a more hilly route and I would work the climbs, like I would pedal hard up the climbs and alternate with then recovery on the way down, and just on flat roads I would recover. These could also be done on flat with some race-specific intensities. So I would do maybe 10 minutes at race intensity, target race intensity, but then I would allow some time to recover. 10 minutes, recover, repeat 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, stuff like that. Another way I would add intensity, even to complement the fact that I wasn't doing any on the run, would be with hill repeats. So I would go one section of the hill, totally full gas, like 3-4 minutes, and then recover on the way down and do it again. And I would build every week 1 more rep. So the first week would be 3 minutes 3 times, the next week would be 3 minutes 4 times. And the long rides would be just adventure rides in beautiful places, flat, climbing. They were fun and they helped me get a lot of time in the saddle. Back to the video. Running. I love running, and I went to the training plan running a lot. I was running maybe even 4 times a week. I would run when I felt like it, basically. But I quickly realized that the training load required for 70.3 was taking a toll on my body. I was getting niggles, I was getting minor injuries and stuff like that. And I didn't want to get injured on the run, because that takes you out completely, you have to stop. So I made a priority to keep the running intensity fairly low, basically not doing intervals, maybe some tempo stuff, but no intervals on the run, so I could increase the training load, staying healthy. I would run 2-3 times a week with one brick session, and the distances would vary from 7 kilometers up to 13, 14, 15 kilometers. Basically all of the running was done in zone 2, aerobic training, and I found it yielded a lot of benefits. Another key thing that I discovered was shoe choice. I had to completely rethink what shoes I was using because the increase in training load and distance required, in my case, a bit more cushioning. So I switched to Hoka One One, seeing so many other people use them. I felt the change immediately, both in drop and in cushioning, and I felt like these were shoes made for me and made to keep me running. Brick sessions I incorporated throughout the whole training, and I found them to be very, very beneficial to get used to the feeling of biking and running. To be honest, I found a great benefit in just riding for like half an hour or 1 hour and then running. I felt like it warmed me up more, like my joints were ready to run. So I did that fairly often and I found it helped a lot. And here comes the fourth discipline of Ironman, which is nutrition. And I must admit, I knew nothing about nutrition. I had never consumed an energy gel in my life. I had no clue what they were. So this was one of the biggest parts of experimenting with nutrition, figuring out what worked for me and what didn't. And when I was building up the training load, something that I found to be really beneficial was fruit, fresh fruit. I would really feel energized by it, especially in the morning or just before going out for a ride. I would eat some fresh fruit and I would feel very good. I started experimenting with gels, testing out different kinds, like one with caffeine, one without caffeine, and seeing the effects that they had on my physiology, because I figured out that caffeinated gels were very different than non-caffeinated gels on my body. If I took too many caffeinated gels, I would feel all twitchy and it would impact my sleep. I used Power Bar, I used Decathlon gels, it's just basically sugar water, so any gels will do. I started really digging into this stuff and experimenting with the timing, asking so many different people about what they did during a race, how they figured this stuff out, and I came out with this sort of equation of 1 gram of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight per hour of exertion. So in my case, it was a 70 kilogram athlete, 70 grams of carbs. One gel or a banana is 20 to 23 grams of carbohydrate. So basically I was aiming at 3 gels per hour when I was doing race intensity stuff. During like casual, let's say zone 2 training, it could be even less. But when I was doing key sessions or very fatigued sessions, that is the number of gels I was targeting per hour. 3 per hour, plus water. 1 gram of carbohydrate needs 3 grams of water to be utilized. So you eat and you drink. Take a gel and you drink. I experimented with a bunch of other different things like rice cakes with jam, some fruit during the run, but basically what I used were gels. So at the beginning of embarking on this journey, when I kind of healed my fibromyalgia, I switched to a whole foods plant-based diet. And that was incredible for healing my condition, and it felt very natural to me, so I kept on doing it. My nutrition staples were and still are buckwheat, whole grains, potatoes, veggies, fruit. Something else that I experimented with was fasted training, which means going out first thing in the morning without eating. It supposedly increases your fat max oxidation rate. In my specific case, I don't know if it did much, so I don't have any more info about that. One thing that I must admit after all this time is that I was probably in a slight deficit of calories during all that time training. I realized it afterwards when I started training with a power meter, because I didn't have a power meter at the time. And a power meter can show you the power you are outputting. And I realized that being at a lower weight meant a lower power on the bike. You can check all the training with power in the Ironman video. Nutrition and recovery tie in very closely because eating proper foods that allowed me to recover very quickly from efforts meant that I could train more consistently. Another key part of recovery was sleep. I ended up prioritizing sleep and sleep quality because I saw the benefits it had really rapidly. I felt fresh, I felt energized, sleeping 8 hours. Being able to adapt your plan to real life and what happens in real life, I think is very important too. When I was having a niggle, a minor injury, I would have no problem in adapting the training plan. Instead of going for a run, I would go for a bike. I would multiply the distance of the run by 4, keep it a bit more high intensity and I would kind of get the same sort of workout. Or if I had to go away for a job last minute, that was maybe 2-3 days, I would just adapt the plan and I wouldn't stress about it so much. Saying this now is very easy. In the moment, I was stressing about it. I was stressed about the race. I was stressed about missing a session. But in retrospect, I think I did a fairly good job about adapting the plan to real life. I think the overarching theme in Ironman 70.3 and long distance triathlon is consistency. So if we manage to nail the vast majority of the sessions, even if we miss one or we move one from one day to the other, it shouldn't be a great problem. Realizing problems you might have during race day, like not being able to sight because of the sun and having to have mirrored goggles, that is something that you only figure out if you test race conditions. Swimming in open water is something I would definitely do again, and I will do more of it actually. Nearing close to the race, I had a final build where I made it paramount to hit every session, and I did my best to follow the plan strictly. And it looked like a lot of hill work on the bike to get intensity in, like really intense hill repeats, to get the VO2 max and to get the heart really firing. Brick sessions, one midweek, a shorter one, and a longer one during the weekend, and a lot of zone 2 rides, just building up fatigue. And in running, the longest run I did was 18 kilometers. So what would I tell my past self with the experience I have now? I would say focus on consistency. Consistency over everything else. So being consistent with the training is a thing that is going to give more benefits, or at least that's what happened in my case. To not stress about the single session that didn't go as planned or that you missed. It is so important to get the vast majority of the sessions done. Even if it's not pretty, even if you don't get them done perfectly, in the grand scheme of things, it is absolutely fine. The second thing would be have fun with it, enjoy it. Training and being outside is a great way to get to know ourselves better. Third thing would be 100% simulate race conditions, and if possible, to do a test race or even more than one. Test race is a great way even just to get the feel for transition zones and that race experience. I had never done a race in my life of nothing. I did an Olympic distance, draft legal, like crazy race, which had nothing to do with 70.3 intensity. Let's get clear about that. But even just being at the starting line with other people and swimming with other people around you, that helped a ton on race day. As well as packing all your stuff in the car, driving to the race, having to rack your bike and figure out all the nutrition, and that really pays off to do it before so you don't make mistakes on race day. You can experiment with nutrition, with gels, see what works, what doesn't, with what you eat the night before and how that impacts your performance on the simulation day. And they are fun, they are a lot of fun. Triathlon community is awesome, you get to know awesome people, chat with them, exchange opinions, views, you go home with a lot of valuable lessons. Another thing I would tell myself is that this is a very time-consuming goal, and the majority of this time is going to be spent alone. This is not so much a bad thing for ourselves, but for the people around us, it can be. So one thing that I tried to do was to include my girlfriend into training sessions where I could, especially long runs. We would go on long runs, she would bike next to me. They turned out to be some of the best sessions of the whole training period because we had both fun and we spent time together and accomplished the session too. Final words, Ironman 70.3 is an awesome journey. I loved it. I found it so much fun and it provided so much value in my life to things that were totally unrelated, that I would absolutely recommend it to anyone. And I hope you that are watching this video are stoked on the 70.3 that you have already planned or that you might do in the future. It is an awesome way to challenge ourselves, to set a meaningful goal that can propel us into the future and make us realize what our true potential is. So, another video in stuff I would have told my past self. This is my humble experience of training for a 70.3. I hope you found it of value. I really want to do my part in sharing it in order to help other people reach their finish line, having fun and having a great experience. If you like the video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, or if you know someone who is training for 70.3, maybe they can find some insights from it. Stay tuned for the video about the full race recap that I'm going to be filming very soon. Peace out and thanks for watching.